Hey, what is up YouTube? This is the Mermail Master coming at you guys again from the Team Time Riders YouTube channel with a new deck profile. Well, not technically new, but an updated deck profile. And this deck profile is going to be on my Earthbound Immortal deck. Now, last year I recorded and released a video on my Earthbound Immortal deck, and it became one of the most popular videos on our channel with over 10,000 views. I was blown away by the reception that deck got, and I felt that I really owed it to you guys to sort of bring back the strategy again and show you what I did with it. Now, I kind of got back into them recently because I was playing around with a couple of options with the cards. And as you guys remember from the last profile, the main focus of my Earthbound Immortal deck was, using things like Stygian Street Patrol and Dark Grepher to load up the graveyard and help push out tribute fodder to help you out alongside your Mausoleum of the Emperor. But with this version of Earthbound Immortals, I decided to take a completely different route and focus entirely upon the Immortals themselves. I think that's the most important part of this deck, is that this deck is bona fide 100% Earthbound Immortals. No outside engines, nothing distracting from it. This is Earthbound Immortals, pure, simple, and to the point. So guys, without further ado, I'm going to get into this deck profile and show you what makes it so special. So first off, you might be probably wondering why Viracocha Rasca is up at the top. And this is kind of the first hint of what is to come. Now, a lot of Earthbound Immortal players hate playing Viracocha Rasca. However, I actually very, very much enjoy the card in this build. Why? Because we're going spell and trap heavy in this build, which means you're going to have a lot of spell and traps. Some of them might be dead, some of them might be set, whatever. But either way, it gives Viracocha Rasca a ton of fodder. So, to start out, let's get into that. So, we have one copy of Earthbound Immortal Viracocha Rasca. Very different from its 5Ds effect, but in this deck, it actually is incredibly useful because you'll be using Earthbound Immortal Viracocha Rasca's effect, which allows you to shuffle back any 3 cards on your side of the field back into the deck, I believe. It's either any 3 cards or any 3 spells and traps, but I believe it's any 3 cards. Yeah, like 3 cards you control into the deck. So you basically shuffle those cards back into the deck, and then you can discard any 3 cards from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, and this card will gain 1,000 attack points for each one you discard. So at only 100 attack points, you discard 3. Discard your opponent's hand, maybe even during the first turn, and Viracocha Rasca goes up to 3,000. And this, of course, is sharing in all of the powers of the Earthbound Immortals, which share a commonality. All Earthbound Immortals can only be on the field under a field spell, so that's commonality number 1. They also cannot be attacked, and that's commonality number 2, and all Earthbound Immortals can attack your opponent's life points directly. So all 3 of those facts combine to make monsters like the Earthbound Immortals good. A 4th factor that I would like to mention as well is that all Earthbound Immortal monsters that you can only control 1 Earthbound Immortal monster on the field, which means as long as you got one of these guys out, you're pretty much only going to have him. So that's Viracocha Rasca, very, very good in this deck right now, and much better than he was in my previous build, might I mention. So, here we go. So for the next card, we have one copy of Earthbound Immortal Kokapak Apu, or Susapak Apu. And this guy is basically the Flame Wingman or the Shining Flare Wingman of the deck. When you attack into your opponent's monster, you can activate his effect, and your opponent will take damage equal to the attack. And he's one of the 2 highest attack Earthbound Immortals in this deck at 3,000 attack. So that's going to be a very, very good for you. So you can either choose to attack into your opponent if you want to destroy their monster, or you can attack directly if you don't really want to get rid of whatever they have on the field. So that's another option that you have with this guy. Very versatile and a good card to search out, especially if you need to get problematic cards off the field. So that's him. Next card we're running in this deck is 2 copies now. We've upped him from 1, 2 copies of the Whale, Earthbound Immortal Chaku Chalua. Chaku Chalua As you guys know, 2900 beater, attacking directly, but the main reason that a lot of players really like Chaku Chalua is that if he's in defense mode, you can inflict half his defense points, so 1200 points of damage to your opponent, and they cannot conduct a battle phase. So really, really good card. One of the most versatile Earthbound Immortals for sure, and definitely one of the cards that you want to be searching and seeing at all points in the game. So that's Chaku Chalua. Next card we're running is a lot of people's favorite Earthbound Immortal, though I haven't been really having too much luck with it, and that is 2 copies of Earthbound Immortal Asilipiscu. And Asilipiscu is one of the lower attack Earthbound Immortals, but it packs a wallop because if it's removed from the field in any way but its own effect, so Earthbound Immortal's own effect states that if there's no field spell card, they're automatically destroyed. If it's removed from the field in any way besides its own effect, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls and inflict 800 points of damage to their life points for each one that went. So very, very good card. And a lot of players just like to get this out. You know, they could take it down with like a self-immolation. You can even run that stupid trap card that came out in Extreme Force. Oops. Pop your Asilipiscu on the field, and then pop your opponent's field and inflict 800 points of damage for each monster destroyed. Very, very good card. So I have him here at 2. Next card we're running in the deck is actually one, he's considered the worst Earthbound Immortal, but I've been having incredible luck with him, and that is 1 copy of Earthbound Immortal Kusilu. Now, a lot of people have been telling me, like, Kusilu is the worst one. Kusilu has a special ability that states, if this card would be destroyed by battle, you contribute 1 monster you control instead, and half your opponent's life points. And, this is a pretty situational effect, requires your battle phase to enact, which means that you're not really going in for the OTK. However, this deck is not really an OTK deck and focuses more on the grind game. And both times that I've gotten Earthbound Immortal Kusilu's effect off, I've had some of those Earthbound ceremonial tokens. I had my Earthbound Lime Walker and like other cards on the field, and that really allowed me to utilize his effect. And then from there, I was able to maintain tempo, stop my opponent from making plays, and get the game in a couple of turns from there. So excellent, excellent card, Earthbound Immortal Kusilu, and I highly recommend it if you're trying to run, an Earthbound deck. It's very, very surprising to me that, he's done a lot more for me than Asilipiscu has at this point in time, but, don't underestimate the monkey, because he can really put in some work for you. Next, we have Earthbound Immortal Uru. He's the last of the Earthbound Immortals I run here. I don't run the Lizard. More on that later, I guess. But, Earthbound Immortal Uru is basically you tribute a monster and then you can steal something that your opponent controls until the end phase. Which is, okay, but the real reason you got him in here is for that 3000 beat stick. Very, very good. Very, very strong kind of play there. So that is going to round it out for the Earthbound Immortals. We only have 1 last monster in this deck, of course, and that is the one and only Earthbound Line Walker. Line Walker is just kind of like the replacement for the field spells. You just pop him on the field. It's a very, very good card. I used to special summon him off of Stygian Street Patrol, but you can utilize this way as well. And he prevents your Earthbound Immortals from being destroyed by their own card effects. The only problem is his attack point is kind of low, so that's a little problem that you might be facing. But, with protection or, if you're going in for an attack with Kusilu, Line Walker can really put in some good work, guys. So that's going to round it out for the monsters. I believe there's only like 10 or 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 monsters in this deck. Now moving on to the spells and traps. So first, this wouldn't be an Earthbound Immortal deck without 3 copies of Mausoleum of the Emperor. Mausoleum is great because instead of tribute summoning, or trying to get stuff on the board for your Earthbounds, you just normal summon them and take damage equal to the life point power of that. So very, very good card. Lets you get your Earthbounds out fast and also counts as the requisite field spell. So very good card. This is the only field spell that I'm running for now. But then I have 3 copies of Terraforming. Of course, the Search Mausoleum. This is going to be the linchpin of your deck. In many decks where field spells are the linchpin, you got to protect that Mausoleum. Next, is going to be draw cards, and we're starting things off with Into the Void. Into the Void is fantastic, and now that it's gone to a lower price point, I picked up these 3 euro prints, and I just knew that I had to throw them into something. And with this, being able to draw cards, set a whole bunch of things, and have the ability to get, the very few monsters you have in your hand out onto the field pretty easily, you've got a very, very good option in that. So, great card, Into the Void. And one of the things that helps you get up to that 3-card limit, of course, is triplicate copy of Card of Demise. And this is what made me decide to put back together the Earthbound deck. I ended up misplacing my Chainburn deck somewhere, and I was going to do a deck profile on that. But I was like, hey, my Card of Demises are just chilling out here doing nothing. What can I do with them? And then I realized Earthbound Immortals don't really have that summoning kind of, restriction where, they don't really have to be special summoned. So what if I took the deck in a different direction than trying to get out tribute fodder and went full on spell trap stun variant of the Earthbound Immortals while still keeping, their textbook trademark kind of way of being. So very, very cool. Card of Demise is fantastic, just lets you dig through your deck for so much stuff, and you'll never ever have any issue with its restriction of discarding cards. Combining it together with Into the Void, both of them make you discard your hand at the end of the turn. You can kind of build it up on the same way as activating double Reckless Greeds, where it just really works in your favor at getting you the stuff that you need. Next card we have in here, of course, because we're not really special summoning, is 3 copies of Pot of Duality. Dig through your deck, find whatever you need. An Earthbound, a field spell, lets you see the top 3 cards, which is more useful here than it is in a lot of other decks. Because certain things that you need to set up your plays, you need an Earthbound, you need a field, you need the Mausoleum, maybe you need like a spell or trap or something. This does a lot of digging and puts in so much more mileage in here than it would in other similar decks. Next card we're running, of course, since we don't have any heavy storms, we have 2 copies here of Earthbound Whirlwind. That's right, it's up from 1. And Earthbound Whirlwind has been a very, very amazing card over the past time, because when you control an Earthbound Immortal monster, you just Harpy Feather Duster your opponent's side of the field, which is insane for trying to set up for your plays, for making sure that you can get in an attack unharmed. The only thing is you have to control an Earthbound Immortal, but that's not really too hard to get one with all of the support cards that you guys have in this deck. So very, very cool card for sure. Very excited to have it. It's not searchable, unfortunately, but that can change. And then next we have 1 copy of Earthbound Revival. Very, very good card. Fetches back any Earthbound and a field spell from your graveyard to your hand. Your Earthbound and your field spells are going to be dying an awful lot in this deck. So you want to make sure that you're being able to recycle them back. And at the price of 1 discard, which of course is a cost, just target 2 things in your graveyard and add them back to your hand. Very, very underestimated card, and you can even search this out with your offering to the Immortals. The final spell card we're running is, now that it's at 1, we've got Monster Reborn, guys. Earthbound Immortals can be special summon, which means you're going to want to take the most advantage of that as possible. And Monster Reborn allows you to do that, gets your Earthbounds back, gets something from your opponent's graveyard. It is all open season on this duel right here. Very, very cool card. So now, getting into our trap cards. To start out, we have 3 offering to the Immortals, or Roar of the Earthbound. My very bad apology on that. Roar of the Earthbound basically states when your opponent attacks with an attack that's lower than an Earthbound Immortal monster you control, you can activate that effect and destroy the opponent's monster. I've actually been thinking about utilizing Roar of the Earthbounds with, cards that make you attack, or cards that make your opponent attack, and then, like a Moon Mirror Shield or something like that. So no matter what, your opponent will always have their things destroyed, and it will inflict that damage right back at them. This is great if you have Earthbound Linewalker on the field and you have your Earthbound Immortal. You don't want your opponent getting in there and popping Linewalker. They come in, they attack Linewalker, you flip Roar of the Earthbounds, pop whatever they have, and then they take damage equal to its attack. So it can be a very, very good card, though I will mention it is an easy switch if you want to take it out for something else, or you want to run, a different variant or different styles of cards. You can, of course, do that. So that is very good. Next card we have in the deck is probably one of the best counter traps, and this is one that no one sees coming, and that's Earthbound Wave. When you control an Earthbound Immortal monster, negate a spell or trap card your opponent activates or uses and destroy it. And so if your opponent's like trying to, negate your whatever, or, they try and like have some other kind of play that would prevent you from doing something, they activate an MST on your Twin Twister or Cosmic Cyclone or something like that on your back row, or even worse, your Mausoleum, just flip out Earthbound Wave and you're set to roll. Very, very good card. And a lot of times if your opponents are activating spell or trap cards, they really will not see this coming. Not a lot of people, not a lot of decks have their own generic counter traps. So when you can flip this surprise play on them, it's often enough to change the tempo of the game in your favor on surprise factor alone. So that is more than enough justification to run it at 3. Next card we're running, of course, is 2 Call of the Haunted, the same reason we're running Monster Reborn, and even better than Monster Reborn in some senses. Call of the Haunted can activate on your opponent's turn, allowing you to special summon an Earthbound Immortal to your field, leaving your turn free of the special summon restriction so that you can easily activate your pot of your card of demise. So very, very awesome card. Now, the card that I've been mentioning for a while is 2 copies of Offering to the Immortals. This is a really, really interesting card because it basically activates when your opponent declares their attack, and you negate that, and then you can special summon any two ceremonial tokens on your side of the field. And then after you do that, you can then add any Earthbound Immortal, Roar of the Earthbounds, which is that trap card with the lizard on it, or the Revival of the Earthbound, which is that spell card that I ran in singular, from your deck to your hand. So it really does everything. It's like, hey, here's an extra turn to do this, and let's get this done. And it can only be done when you have lower than 3,000 life points, which, believe it or not, is, you're going to be playing with life points a lot in this deck. So your life points will get down very, very low because you're going to be doing a lot of summoning off of your Mausoleum, and you'll be, paying life points left and right for this and that. And so it's very easy to get below 3,000, and that's where Offering to the Immortals comes in, and it gives you those extra tokens, things that you can use with Kusilu, help you switch the tempo of the game and make sure that you can get, your Earthbounds or get a field spell back or something like that. Very, very good card, and I definitely recommend running it in the deck. I will mention, though, I wish it was like a chainable thing, but, that's not too bad about that. Second to last card we've got in this deck is 1 Revival of the Immortals. Revival of the Immortals is kind of like a Call of the Haunted for Earthbound. It special summons them back, but any battle damage they would inflict to your opponent is 0, unfortunately. This guy's great for reborning back the Whale in defense mode, because you can still inflict effect damage to them. And he's also chainable, which means if you special summon a thing from the graveyard, if your opponent activates a Cosmic Cyclone to get this off the field, that it won't really be too big of an issue because your monster will be able to stay on the field. So another good card to have in the deck, but I only have it in here at 1. The last card we're running, of course, is Solemn Judgment. And you guys know Solemn Judgment came back to 1 along with Monster Reborn, a very, very good limiting in my honest opinion. I think that the game really needed this. And a lot of people might be asking me or be wondering, where's the Solemn Brigade? Why aren't you running, your strikes and your warnings, and why just a Judgment? Well, I've been waiting to run the Judgment for a while in Earthbound Immortals, and the primary reason for that is because of its life point cost. Solemn Judgment, no matter when you activate it during a game, will always be live. You're paying a lot of life points in Earthbound Immortals to get your effects off, from, your Mausoleum of the Emperor to, other plays that you're doing in the deck. And so, you're going to get to like 3,000 or below very, very quickly in this deck. And one thing could change the tempo of the game. That means that most of the time, if you've got warnings and strikes and things like that in your deck, that stuff is going to be dead. It's going to be absolutely dead. And so you don't really want to subject yourself to a situation where that's a reality. However, Solemn Judgment removes that kind of, fear that you have, which allowing you to pay or play with the life points that you do have left in a very, very clean and, structured and functional way, which I think is just, the best possible way to do this deck. You are playing with your life points. You are doing a lot of plays, and Solemn Judgment is exactly what the deck needed. A fantastic counter trap, and I'm so glad to see that it's back here at 1. All right, guys. So that was the deck. My Demise Earthbound Immortal deck. It's 40 cards, and the main focus, of course, guys, is on those Earthbound Immortals. It's a fantastic deck. You guys can, of course, change it up however you like, but I love what's going on in this deck and how it's running. And, if you guys do like this video, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe on the Team Time Riders YouTube channel. And, well, with that, guys, this has been the Mermail Master, and I'm signing out. Catch you guys next time. Peace.